We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata here. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Uh, the bye week has ended
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, so we move forward. Um, had fun though. Watched other teams. Watched. There's some good football, especially in that early window on Sunday. Love that. All the crazy endings there. Washington giving up an onside kick touchdown. That's insane. Guy should have went down, but at the same time, it was funnier that he kept running. I think what else? I mean, there's a lot of good games. I think the Rams and Eagles game not great, but the I don't know, none of the night games are that good.
Mm-mm.
So, but there was good stuff on Sunday, and then I watched the film of the Lions offense and defense, and watched the Cardinals offense because I find that Cardinals offense interesting. And then they go out as I'm having this take, they go out and they put up like 6 points against the Seahawks. So maybe I'll have to see how that happened. But they do a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of trapping, a lot of runs. What makes me interested is that they do a lot of stuff that Burrow likes. They're in shotgun a lot, they're in pistol a lot. And yeah, there's quarterback run elements to those runs, but they also have no quarterback run elements to some of these runs where they're running pin pull, they're running influence trap and all this other stuff that there's no quarterback run element to that. They're just mashing people and getting downhill. And then the drop back pass stuff's interesting. The play action stuff's interesting. And then of course they go and pee down their leg. So we'll see what happened. It could have been anything, but it doesn't seem great for that take for what happened. What did you do during this week of rest?
Yeah, I mean, mostly just watched a lot of football. I agree with you. I think those 1 o'clock games are a little wild and crazy. And honestly, I think when you think about the NFL as a whole, that's why I feel like it's so frustrating where the Bengals are right now at 4-7 and on the season because the product isn't that great. And it's really a bad year to have such a great offense and a terrible defense. I feel like it's the Lions and the Eagles at the top, and then a huge space to the next team. And that's not taking anything away from Kansas City or the Buffalo Bills or anything like that. But I just feel like when it comes to talent on both sides of the roster, those two teams are just kind of really setting themselves apart. We'll see what it looks like when we get into the playoffs because you're going to have one AFC team um, see them in the Super Bowl. So we'll see what that looks like. But at the end of the day, it just really feels like it's the Lions and the Eagles. And I did enjoy a little bit of a breather from Bengals football with all the chaos in those games. I thought, you know what, it's nice. It's nice to relax. The Bengals, they actually had a light practice on Monday. Good news, Orlando Brown Jr. did return. He was at practice, which is very encouraging when you think about this defense that they're going to have to face in the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. T. Higgins was on the rehab field, but that was very similar to what he did before the Chargers game. So still expecting him to be out there for this game. We'll see what it looks like. You look at the AFC playoff picture. I know we've talked about it. You got to go win 4 games before I believe in you again. They're in a huge hole. It's just not worth really even talking about what they need to do besides you got to beat the Steelers first and then figure out the rest later. This is obviously a game the Steelers are coming off a tough one in the AFC North. Every AFC North battle, I feel like with all the teams this year, it's absolutely wild. Anything can happen. Some of them are closer than others, and sometimes it's the team with the worst record that finds a way to win. Look at the Cleveland Browns. They have 2 wins against the 3 wins, but 2 wins against AFC North opponents. And the Cincinnati Bengals were able to at least beat them on the road. But you look at this matchup and we'll start with the Pittsburgh Steelers defense because that's exactly what terrifies me. Anytime they do go against the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line, the interior has played poor all season long. Orlando Brown Jr. has been their best offensive line player. He's been out the last few weeks, still expecting him to be out there for this matchup. You want to see more out of your interior, Alex Kappa, Cordell Wilson, but I don't know if this is the week that I'm really have really high standards for them. When it comes to the secondary, the corners, the wide receivers are very familiar with who they're going to be facing out there. And it's just a tough defense. It's AFC North battle. It's going to be a cold one, 25 degrees for this game. And you're just hoping that the Bengals offense can stay atop of what we've watched over the last few weeks. What are you expecting between Bengals offense and Steelers defense?
The the Steelers don't do a lot of particularly like interesting stuff on defense. It's not like they have this weird pressure pack. Like when I talked about the Chargers defense, I also said it wasn't that like super exciting on base downs, but when they
Mhm.
got to third and long, they got really interesting. I don't think the Steelers do. Like they kind of just are who they are, but they're so good at what they do that it doesn't matter. The Steelers are going to beat you up front. That's their whole motto. That's their whole game is to win in the trenches, and then from there they do enough on the back end. When you have Minka Fitzpatrick covering up some of your, putting out some of the fires back there, it goes pretty well. Joey Porter Jr. interesting. He's having a little bit worse year than last year, but I think it seems like a lot of these physical corners are just having a worse year than last year because it seems like they're calling stuff on them a little bit more. Same things happen with Sauce Gardner. Is that these guys are super physical, but when they're getting stuff called against them, they stop helping their team and hurting their team in those instances. So that's something to watch. We'll see how the game is officiated. That's always interesting when you have a corner like that because Chase and Higgins do not back down from those guys. They fight them back. And when nothing's getting called, sometimes the corner's able to win those. I can think of Carlton Davis winning with the Bucks. Some Browns historical wins against the Bengals wide receivers. I don't know if Joey Porter Jr. would win, and I don't think Dante Jackson would want to be in that situation where he's trying to do that as well. But it's sometimes a fun watch. But on defense, yeah, they're going to try to kill you up front. You've got Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, and then bevy of role players where Nick Herbig's a good pass rusher now. Alex Highsmith, if he plays, is
Yeah.
a very good pass rusher. And then our friends Ogunjobi and then Keanu Benton and just a lot of guys up front that are they're very good players, or at least they have a very defined role. The reason to me that they didn't have as good of a game as Cleveland was because TJ Watt didn't take over that game despite having plenty of one-on-one opportunities. Would that happen 2 weeks in a row? I doubt it, but sure would be helpful if it did. I think the other side is where you could look to for the Bengals having an advantage in the trenches would if Orlando Brown plays in pass protection. I think Herbig and Highsmith are great players, and I think he could take them. We'll see. I think it'll at least be a good battle, and that way you can give plenty of help to Amarius Mims, who's going up against TJ Watt, because that is a matchup I don't think I'd want on paper to go one-on-one the entire game. He's a rookie. Maybe in a couple years, you'd feel comfortable with Mims taking on Watt just one-on-one throughout the game because it gives you advantage elsewhere. But at the moment, I'd be giving him plenty of help in this game. The interior, in my mind, I've already chalked it up to a loss. Cam Hayward is playing the best football that he may have ever played and found the fountain of youth. Because I remember he was, I think he was, he was in that 2011 draft class with AJ Green and Andy Dalton, and he's out there still performing at such a high level. It's crazy, but he's probably going to get his wins on the interior. You just hope it's not enough to wreck the game. He's historically played very well against Cordell Volson. Alex
A lot of
Kappa is
guys
not the
do.
player. Yeah, but that I remember that one though because in his first year it was terrible performances against them. Got a couple of wins here and there, but over 2 games it was mostly losses. Alex Kappa, I don't think he'll face Hayward a whole bunch. I think Hayward's going to line up over Volson most of the game, but Kappa is also not the player he once was, so maybe they will scheme some stuff to attack him as well. I don't have a lot of confidence in the trenches of this matchup, and I think that's how the Steelers could control the game. But at the same time, they have miserably lost the trenches battle like 3 weeks in a row, and it has not mattered whatsoever for this offense. The offense just keeps rolling despite that. Now, I don't know. You're playing with fire because this is just like the 2021 playoff run where it's like, the offense is fine. The offense is fine. Then you hit the Super Bowl. It's like the offense is no longer fine. The building has finally collapsed under an immense weight. So hopefully the weight's not as big in this game, but if I was looking at it on paper, I'd say the Steelers have a few advantages up front for their defense.
Yeah, I would say the defense is what scares me. It always has, and even when my expectations were extremely high going into the home opener 2 years ago, and the Bengals struggled, and it almost felt like they always start out slow in that game, but they just couldn't bounce back, and it's just something that I'm worried about when I think about this offense. The offense has been on a high for several weeks. Do I trust Joey B to get out of it, scramble? He's definitely been more mobile over the last, I would say, even 3 to 4 weeks. Not that he wasn't at the beginning of the season, but he had mentioned in November. Probably when it gets to November, it'll be a year since the surgery, and it usually takes about a year to fully be 100%. So I do think Joe's trusting where he's at more every single week. Not that it's really made a difference because he's playing at an MVP type level. But I expect Joe to probably escape some of that because he's pretty much used to it with his poor interior offensive line. So maybe we'll see more of Joe, do what he did against the Chargers, do what he did against the Baltimore Ravens. And sometimes it's just him and Jamar, him and T connecting on their chemistry, and he's able to make something out of nothing. So we'll see what that looks like. It's obviously, just a tough overall defense that they're going to be facing. They're coming off a pretty bad loss on Thursday Night Football, a tough one against the Cleveland Browns. So we'll see what it looks like for their defensive side. But you flip to the offense, and normally if the Bengals had a few more playmakers on the defensive side, I'd feel a little bit better about it. Obviously, Russ, I do feel like he's the better option than Justin Fields. They have a run game, and the Cincinnati Bengals have actually been okay stopping the run recently. It's just the explosive plays and Cam Taylor-Britt getting picked on. He's going to have to play. Don't really have an option to bench him in this game with all the injuries you're feeling at cornerback. Josh Newton is expected to get the start too. We'll see what that looks like for the guys. Will they make a switch when it comes to safety play? Maybe more Jordan Battle, less Von Bell, Geno Stone. I don't know if we'll see that in this matchup. You're expecting more out of your vets. Can they get pressure on Russ and win that interior battle? I just don't know if I trust the defense to bounce back in this game because I know it's Russ on the other side, but they still have weapons. It's going to be one of the best wide receivers that they've faced all season long, and I'm expecting the Bengals defense to still struggle against this offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think Russ is fine. I want to give a quick update because I looked it up. Alex Highsmith is expected to return this game, of course. So no breaks. But I think Russ is fine. He's playing Russ ball. He's throwing a lot of stuff outside the numbers. He's throwing a lot of go balls to George Pickens. The thing that makes this interesting is that the Bengals, more so this year than I think the last couple of years, have played a little bit more single high and have tried to play gapped out, and that's how they're stopping the run a little bit better. But that plays into Russ's hands if he's going to throw some moon balls on the outside. There's a very catchable go ball. The corner's got to be ready because, Pickens is a good player. I think they didn't match up well with Pat Freiermuth last time they played for whatever reason. So hopefully that's a little bit fixed up, although the safety play is, I would say, worse this season, maybe the same. So I'm not expecting a lot out of that. Maybe they have a better plan, though, for him. Mike Williams, the rest of those wide receivers, I don't have a lot of opinion on. I mean, Calvin Austin moves fine, but he's like 5'9", so he's only so useful. The rest of them, whatever. Mike Williams is still Mike Williams. If you give him a go ball around the outside and he's facing off against a corner that doesn't know where the ball is, he can win those opportunities. Less version of Pickens. But yeah, I think the Bengals should be okay at stopping the run in this game. We'll see, though, because the Steelers also have been mashing people on the ground for the most part. Zach Frazier's been awesome for them at center. Mason McCormick's been a pretty good run blocker. Broderick Jones has his issues in pass protection, but he will get out there. He's an athlete, and he's a strong athlete that can run block a little bit. I think if you can get the Steelers in the obvious passing downs, you can take advantage of this offense, but you have to be able to get them into the situations too, which the Bengals haven't done a good job of this season. I think, man, the saddest thing would be Sam Hubbard trotting out there again for 30 snaps and Broderick Jones having his best day. It's like, well, Sam Hubbard over the last 2 weeks has a 0% pass rush win rate. That's not even just pressures, man. That's like he hasn't won a single pass rush in 2 weeks. This might be the worst pass rusher that starts out of the entire NFL. I can't think of a lot of guys that can't even luck their way into wins. So I don't think you could toss him out there for any pass rushing opportunities. I mean, you can't predict when they're going to throw the ball on first down, but for me, he might just be a short yardage guy in this game unless you really feel like you need him. I think Osai and Murphy can do well enough in the run game to survive because not like Hubbard, he actually did well in the run game against Los Angeles anyway. So we'll see. I like you, I do not have a lot of faith in this Bengals defense stopping the Steelers offense, despite the Steelers offense not really being something that most people are scared of. But I think both of us just look at this and go like, yeah, I see how they scored 28.
It's the defense. It's their defense for me. And then I just feel like, they can do enough. They can create turnovers. They always do. They always do against the Bengals. So I'm just like expecting at least one turnover, and they can
TJ
control.
watches.
He
TJ
just
watches
does.
jumping up at the line of scrimmage and catching the ball somehow.
He
did that
does.
twice in 1 year before.
So and maybe that's where I'm at. And I agree with you. Look, this team is 4-7. We have said it over and over and over again. Lou Anarumo, I know you probably don't listen to podcasts, but if you put him out there, if you put Sam Hubbard out there, you guys are waving the white flag. And you were just saying, you know what? We're just rolling with what we have. And that is not fair because you don't know what you have. And your year 2 player in Miles Murphy. You get only 6 more games left of Joseph Asai. He's not going to be extended here. We already know that. We know who his agent is. It's not going to happen. So get something out of these guys who you have left. Get something out of your second year player in Miles Murphy so we know if he's good or not. It's absolutely brutal mismanagement of the player personnel who you're putting out there on the defensive side because it is 28th right now overall. And I'm okay with it saying, hey, we tried the youth. It didn't work for them in the Pittsburgh Steelers game. Season's over. At least we know versus going into another game. You're at 4-8 and we still don't know. We still don't know because you decided to play the guys who haven't been performing all season long. So defensively, we'll see what it looks like. I say all of that, and we have to give our prediction, but there's one more unit I want to get to, and that's special teams. The Cincinnati Bengals could have had two other wins on the season if special teams would have been able to produce. Evan McPherson would have been able to make kicks. I truly believe they would have won the Chargers game. They would have probably made two Ravens game first time around. Just absolutely brutal from Evan McPherson. He's one of the worst kickers in the NFL right now, and that's just absolutely crazy. I'm not a kicker professional. Don't know if it's something that's mental or physical or what's going on. He, did say he took some time away, and hopefully in these next 6 games they can figure it out with Evan McPherson, or they're going to have a new plan going into 2025. And look, they have other holes that they need to address. I do not want to look for another kicker, but it's extremely important. It's a reason why they've lost a couple games. So I think you look at this, it's going to be a game where that's going to matter. If you get in the red zone and you can't get a touchdown, you're going to need Evan McPherson to make the kicks. One of the things the Pittsburgh Steelers do, they make their kicks. They kick a lot of field goals. You look back at the game against the Baltimore Ravens, they had 0 touchdowns and still found a way to win the game because of their reliable field goal kicker. And I think that's definitely going to be another thing that you're going to win on the special team side. Look, I've been happy with punting. They have a punter that's awesome, but you need your kicker, the one that got extended before the season, to make kicks because it's his only job.
Yeah, Evan McPherson on average is losing you 2 points per game. Per game, you lose 2 points because he's missing field goals. I mean, he's one of the worst kickers in the league this year. Now, kickers have bounced back before, but that's just astounding because they're currently, I think, the 6th best offense in points per game, and they would be the 4th best offense in points per game if he just made his kicks. Even if he just made, I think, like 80% or 85% of his kicks, they would be the 4th best offense in the league. So you're moved from a top 5 offense to the 6th best offense, and it's lost you multiple games, as you said. I will say, Chris Boswell on the other side, very good kicker, obviously. And he had 2 down years himself where he kicked under 70%, I think, in 2018 and under 75% in 2022, I want to say. So and he's bounced back each time. So there is hope to be like, this is just variance. This is just a funk. This is just the yips. This is whatever. And the kicker eventually gets over. Just has to see the ball go through the uprights a few times and the confidence is back, because confidence is huge in sports in general, but I'm sure it's huge in kicking to not be thinking about how you're kicking so much and just be able to go out there and kick the ball right through the uprights like you've always done. But yeah, if you miss more kicks this game, it really leads into the question of, do you keep him on the roster next season? So I think in a way he's fighting for his job, just not. I didn't think we'd be here, but there is an out. You save $3 million if you cut him in the offseason at 1 year after being extended. It's not ideal. You want him to just start kicking better. But if he stays as the worst or one of the 2-3 worst kickers in the league, if he could just get to like lower third, you just be like, he's not a good kicker this year, but it's not the worst kicker in the league. I think you keep him around. But if you are one like the worst or second worst or third worst kicker in the league, I think that gets you into territory of getting cut in the offseason, surprisingly. Or at the very least, and this might happen either way, they bring in somebody as a UDFA to actually push him and be like, look, you were so bad last year that we can't really rely on you to be that guy this season. On the other side of special teams, Ryan Rico, still a top 10 punter, according to my guys' Punalytics. I voted for him in the Pro Bowl. Actually, I didn't get my Pro Bowl vote in because it made me sign in, and I didn't want to sign in. Didn't have my login. I was like, no. I clicked on 104 players, but I'm not going to take the time to sign in afterward. But yeah, I was going to vote for him because he's like the 8th best punter. And I don't care about the 2 punters ahead of him. I'm going to force him in there anyway, because why not? The Mormon Missile, he's doing a great job this season. Can't say enough kind words about him in this performance, even though it's not as good as it was the first couple of weeks. The first couple of weeks, he was like the best or second best punter by Punalytics. Now he's like the 8th best punter. That's all right. That's so extremely good. And by far, I think the best the Bengals have had since like Huber's prime. Not even like late stage Huber, but like his prime, I think Huber would be there. But I don't know about the last 4 or 5 years of his career.
He doesn't really get a lot of opportunities. I mean, this team does score a lot. So, which is a good thing. I will take that every single day of the week. But we'll see if this offense can continue to roll against the Pittsburgh Steelers for the first time this season. It obviously is a game that they need to win. I would say the Cincinnati Bengals need to win 6 games in a row, and that will not be easy with the defense that they currently have. But focus number 1 is Paycor Stadium on Sunday. Mike, what is going to happen?
Well, I told you I'm not really buying into this team until they win some games. So this is going to be a believe it if I see it game. I'm surprised the Bengals are favored. This is an 8-3 team walking into the territory of a team that is 4-7. I understand the Bengals have a very big quarterback advantage. They've had that multiple games this season and lost. I think it comes down to, is Russ competent enough to take advantage of the Bengals defense? Every time they've played a quarterback who's not just good, but just competent, just like at least solid, can play, can find the open receivers. It's like a Gardner Minshew line, because Minshew couldn't do it. But when they've played, and Danny Dimes couldn't do it, but he got cut last week. So that tells you where he was in his career. But if he can do that, I think the Steelers win this game, and they probably put up somewhere near 30 points somehow. And that will be surprising, but every time they face a quarterback who can throw the ball decently well, this is true about Jameis too, which I'm a little nervous about that Browns game just because they got nothing to lose. Jameis out there just throwing the ball. There's open receivers in this Bengals defense. They just cannot figure anything out. They're still having miscommunications and coverage breakdowns, and it's week 12 or whatever teaching is going on is not taking. I don't know. Like, that's where I am with Russ, is I don't know if he is that guy, because is he that guy to find stuff over the middle of the field? Is he that guy that can find the open receiver on every play? Even if that guy's wide open, or at the very least open, I don't know. I haven't watched enough Russell Wilson this season. I know if this was Denver Russell Wilson, I would probably lean no, just because it seemed like that wasn't a big deal. But Russ is at his worst when he has to create nowadays. He just doesn't have the athleticism to do so anymore. I'm going to go with, I think the Steelers win, and I think it's like 24-23. I think they somehow pull it out. They have voodoo magic that nobody talks about their voodoo like they do the Chiefs, but they have it as well, where they just block a kick. They block a punt. They return a kick for a touchdown. Their special teams is like the best in the league, and that's a big reason why they are so far up the leaderboard in the standings. But yeah, I could see the Bengals winning this game easily. I could see them getting blown out in this game, to be honest, and I could see them doing the blowing out too. Like this is a complete wild card to me. If I had to guess, though, I've watched the Bengals lose enough heartbreaking games that I'll just go with that 24-23 Steelers.
Yeah. I want to pick against the Bengals. I have no reason to have any faith or confidence in them except Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And I know that doesn't matter because they've been able to put up 5,000 yards of offense in one game and throw for 20 billion touchdowns and still not win the game. Trey Hendrickson is leading the league in sacks, and his defense can't do anything to help or support him. They cannot close games. Their kicker is missing field goals to not help them in really crucial situations. I shouldn't pick the Cincinnati Bengals in this game.
And yet,
I'm just like, you know what? You got them. This is it. Every single week I say it's their season. Every single week I said they have to win the important game and they don't win it. Every single week I look back on the end of the Ravens game, the first time around when they were up by 2 scores with 5 minutes to go in the game and they couldn't close the game. That is a problem. That is personnel. That is coaching. That is everybody connected to the Cincinnati Bengals from the front office to who is currently playing on the field. That is a problem. That coaching can fix. You mentioned it perfectly when you said the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, I can say all I want about the Kansas City Chiefs offense, and it's not really the blowing people out of the park or anything like that because they have a legit defense. But you know what? They still close games. They still get in enough to kick the game winner. They still find a way to win 10 games already this season. They have 1 loss. And I just feel like, and I know they're not playing the Kansas City Chiefs, but just the comparison on being able to close games and the Cincinnati Bengals aren't there yet. Close a game. You won 1 home game. Win another one. This would be huge. You know how many people would buy back in at 5-7, even though they're in a hole, if you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers at home? I trust the Bengals offense. I do think it's going to be tough because the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're physical. It's an AFC North battle. It always is. I do think that TJ will force a turnover just because that's what happens. But I think Joe Burrow and the offense does enough. It's going to be close. Russ will be fine. I'm sure Pickens will have a touchdown. They'll be able to run the ball. It's going to be under 46. I'm going to say 20-23. Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, I could see this going anyway. Whatever you said, I was like, yeah, I could see that. It's not like I'm not coming here and be like, no.
I'm like mad at them. I'm so disappointed and I'm so mad with where they're at in the season because of just how close these 1-score games have been. And they've lost.
Yeah, that's why I'm just disheartened about the whole thing of just like, I think they lose. Like, I don't know.
And I'm not going to be, Mike, you said it best. You said, you're not going to be surprised if the Bengals win, not going to be surprised if it's a close game, not going to be surprised if the Steelers win, not going to be surprised if they win by a lot. I could say the same thing about the Steelers. I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers won by a couple scores. Would I be surprised if the Bengals won it by a couple scores? Probably would be, just because they haven't been able to keep a lead.
I think the way it goes, like that could happen to me, and that would be the situation where Russ is not the competent starter he's looked, where he's not seeing these open receivers, he throws a pick, and then that's how the Bengals, win by a couple of scores, is that their offense still does well enough, which I think they will. Like, I don't think this offense is going to end up putting up 12 points or something like
knock on wood.
Ridiculous. Yeah, knock on wood. The Chargers defense is pretty good, though they got trounced by the Ravens, and they were able to move the ball against them. Different type of defense with the Steelers. Maybe Burrow can't handle the pressure, but I think they'll do fine on offense. It's just the defense, where the defense is the complete wild card to me. If they come out of this and it just looks the same as it always has this couple of weeks, or this whole year, then I have no faith in them stopping the Steelers offense. If the defense comes out, maybe they got a little bit extra fire lit under them. Maybe, Russ is playing poorly, which I think he did play fairly poorly against the Browns for what it's worth. I don't think he was, all there in that game. Otherwise, I think they would have won. So if it looks like that, then I could see how the Bengals win this game by multiple scores. So that's where I am with the whole wild card, where anything could happen. Russ is competent. They win 31-17. Could see it. If a couple of turnovers, a couple of weird special teams plays, Bengals win 31-17. I could see it. It's just Russ plays terrible. The ground game doesn't matter, and they're able to move the ball against this defense. They've moved the ball against every defense. But if I had to predict it, close game, I'm giving the Steelers just because I've watched this team lose all these close games. Why wouldn't I predict a close game that they lose? That's their specialty this year.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a game they need. So that every week. I feel like it's Groundhog Day. Hopefully the Cincinnati Bengals find a way December 1st to turn the season around, even though I have very little confidence. And
I'm apathetic to it. I'm apathetic to it.
They can't hurt me.
Last game was the one I was like, you gotta win. So I can't then say, well, you gotta win this one. Like, yeah, you do, but I'm also just apathetic to like, okay.
The boy who cried wolf.
Yeah.
Every single time. I'm like,
every single week's you gotta win this game. Because technically every single week is a gotta win this game till you're actually counted out, but they're so close to being counted out that I'm just
this is it. And I don't know. I should have zero confidence in them just because of their defense is so bad. But for some reason, it's going to be freezing. And I'm not that that's going to matter or anything like that. But you know what? Hard Knocks started this week. Let's get some good tape on Hard Knocks so I can actually watch it. Because I will be avoiding that show if they just continue to lose the rest of the season. But Mike, anything up on Bengals talk?
No.
That's fine. It's fine. You deserve to buy. But I know you have plenty of clips over on Twitter. Yeah. Make sure you follow Bengals_Sand. You can follow me at Ellen Diaz Patterson. Win, lose, or tie, which I hope they don't tie or they lose. We'll be on after the game. Thanks for listening to It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Have a great Thanksgiving.